Time is up, and now the federal government is officially closed. It is day one of the federal government shutdown, and hundreds of thousands of federal workers in the DMV, of course, impacted by this. With the House more divided than ever, the fight centers on health care subsidies and deep divisions over spending priorities. And this afternoon, we're speaking with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey and Republican Congressman Morgan Griffith, to unpack what is fueling the standoff and what it'll take to bring both sides back to the table. And we're going to start with Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey. Thank you so much for coming in.
Sure.
Let's start with this. We've been here before. We've been through a shutdown before, but this one is different. The last one in 2018, 7 years ago, lasted for 35 long days.
Right.
How is this one different this time around?
Well, one is that President Trump is threatening a punitive attack on government employees. He's already launched one on January 20th, but to penalize, to permanently RIF people unless the Democrats sort of bend to his demands. I think most of the people in my district are like, well, he's been after us already anyway for the past 9 months. So there's less concern about that threat. The other big piece, though, is the health care piece, as you alluded to. The Republicans cut $1 trillion out of Medicaid, and that's going to have an impact on Americans across the country. People with like elderly care, disabled children and the like. And the other big piece is the Republican refusal to extend the tax subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare.
Right.
So we need to make sure that we get both of these things done. We want to reopen the government as quickly as possible for obvious reasons. But the American people need to be let out of this hole that the Republicans dug with respect to health care.
And to your point, this impact is far-reaching.
Yeah.
There's a huge ripple effect, not just to the federal workers, but of course to the businesses that serve the federal workers as well. And it's already happening in a very tense, scary time as it is. So what do you say to your constituents, to the people that are wondering, is there a last-minute deal that could happen here? How long will this take? What are my resources?
Yeah, federal contractors are being hit pretty hard with this too, but there's always a way to reach a deal. I mean, a big step in the right direction would be, to have conversations. The Republicans didn't have any discussions with Democrats on the House side until their bill hit the floor, and then they forced it through on a party line vote. I think they got one Democratic vote out of 212 or so. So hopefully we'll be able to get to a point where we have those discussions. Then after they took that vote, the Speaker sent all the Republicans out of town and hasn't brought them back yet. The Democrats came back yesterday to try and work on something. There are no Republicans here to work with. Hopefully on the Senate side, there'll be more of an effort to have bipartisan discussions, but we'll have to see.
Just to build more on the healthcare piece, of all the things that the two sides disagree on, and there are plenty, it does seem like that healthcare piece is the critical divider. Give me a sense of what this could mean to Americans if this doesn't happen.
I mean, the estimates are somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 million people who could lose health care coverage. That's just based on the ACA extension. With respect to the cuts for Medicaid, it's far bigger. And not just people losing coverage, but potentially hospitals shutting down, medical institutions, because Medicaid provides the revenue stream for some institutions, especially in some of the rural and urban areas, big chunks of the revenue they need to stay open. So if you shut that down, we're going to lose some of those already. I think you've already seen 2 or 3 of them close in Virginia already, and we've got some at risk in Maryland as well.
What specific protections are you advocating for the residents in the DMV?
Well, there's legislation to try and make sure they get their back pay. They're supposed to get their furlough. People who are furloughed are supposed to get back pay. We've got legislation aimed at making sure that everybody gets paid who doesn't get a chance to go in and isn't deemed essential. And also, I think we've got to make sure that there's protections for people who are trying to figure out just how to muddle through this from a financial standpoint. So there's some efforts by the state. The governor's announced a rollout and the county executive too, working with financial institutions, perhaps extension on loans or refinancing capability. Maryland, I think, has a $700 interest-free loan that's available to some people who've been forced out of their work for a particular time period. So there's efforts like that going on, but it doesn't fill the whole gap.
Yeah. I want to also get in the resources that you're providing to your constituents, the webinar, and other resources that you would like to mention.
Yeah, I know a big piece of this has been information. The Trump
Right.
administration didn't put out its implementation plan until today, actually. So one of the things we're trying to do is I've got a webinar live stream coming up at 5 o'clock today. Go to ivy.house.gov or Facebook. You can reach it on my official site as well. But in part to provide information and answer questions. We've got some experts on the call who can help address some of the
Fantastic.
concerns.
Fantastic, because I know there are plenty.
Absolutely.
Congressman Ivey, thank you so much.
Thank
Working
you.
hard for the community, as always.
Thanks for having me
All
on.
right, of course. All righty, now we turn to the Republican voice, Congressman Morgan Griffith of Virginia, who says Democrats are pushing unsustainable demands and blocking a path to keep the government running. And he joins us now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let's start with what you're hearing from your colleagues and constituents this afternoon. What's the feeling among the GOP about this current shutdown?
Well, it's about funding the government. I mean, it's a 7.5 week CR, clean continuing resolution. There are a few extensions in there, things that are important to my district, like extension of programs to pay more to low volume hospitals and things like that are in there. Telemedicine, there's an extension in there. Without those extensions, some of these programs may be in some jeopardy. We gave a short-term time period on a continuing resolution to keep the government funded 7.5 weeks. This is not the time and the place to be fighting over a lot of these issues that the Democrats have brought up. This is about trying to get our appropriations bills done and giving us a little bit more time to try to get back to regular order. It has nothing to do with all of those other issues that they want to say it's about. And in fairness, some of them we can't work on, but others, many of us have already indicated we're willing to work on coming up with some compromise language. So why do we need a shutdown? What we need is to fund the government for 7.5 weeks, see where we go, and then move on. If this was a year-long CR, continuing resolution that lasted until next September or even next December, one might understand the concerns of my Democrat colleagues. But this is, I believe, is a move that was done for political purposes, particularly in the Senate. Senator Schumer got a lot of backlash for agreeing to a continuing resolution in March, and I think he's trying to save face. That's my opinion. I don't see any logic to this. And stop and think about this for a minute. For all your people out there in Northern Virginia and even in Maryland, in winter, spring, they were fighting President Trump over making cuts to federal employees. Now they've handed him the red pen to cut programs on a silver platter. Not sure that makes a lot of sense because those programs, they could argue in court, were funded by Congress and authorized by Congress. Some of them are no longer authorized, and none of them are funded. So the president now has a blank check to go out and cut those very programs Democrats say they don't want to see cut. And they respond by saying, oh, he's being a bully. Whoa, wait a minute. They're saying we're going to shut the government down, which they just did, unless you cave into our demands. That's where this all started. They threw the first punch. Hopefully we can get it resolved fairly quickly. But I don't know how you negotiate when people are demanding things that they know that I and other Republicans can't vote for. We can negotiate on some of it, but they put too much stuff in there. They've thrown in all kinds of different things. And I will just tell you, not going to happen. And so we've got to figure it out. Now we can work on negotiating some of it, but we have to work on funding the government first. And I think there's going to be damage to a lot of programs, unfortunately, that affect my constituents, affect every congressional district in the nation, because, as I believe, the only logical reason for doing this is for Senator Schumer and others to save face.
I want to build on more of the programs being cut, because while we don't know just how far-reaching this impact could be or for how long, what we do know is that the president said last night that there could be some good that comes out of this. From your perspective, do you agree with that? And what could happen? Are we talking about reshaping the government here? He's alluded to carrying out mass firings of federal workers and eliminating programs, as you mentioned, in the event of a shutdown. So what do you say to the thousands of people who are being impacted directly and their families?
Well, I think it's a shame. I wish the Democrats hadn't done this. If we're going to shrink government, I would like to see a more orderly process. And I do think that that's going to result in a shrinking of the federal government. And the Democrats just handed away congressional authority, handed away congressional input, and said to the president, here you go. cut whatever you think is not necessary, what's not essential. And while usually we have come back in and restored all of that, and that may happen if this short shutdown only lasts a day or two, if this thing goes on for several weeks, I suspect several of these programs will never uh, be restored, and that those jobs will be permanently eliminated, and it's tough.
What steps
It's
are
hard.
you taking to shield Virginia's federal workforce and also the military families from this impact, the shutdown's
Well,
impact?
the president has indicated he will take care of the military families, that he's going to make sure that the soldiers get paid and that Social Security is delivered. And you know, I represent as far away from DC as you can get in Virginia, and so I don't have as many federal workers as Congressman Ivey has. But our offices will be open. I've deemed my people to be essential to try to work through problems and situations that individuals and families might have. But you know, as a conservative, I don't mind seeing the government shrink a little bit. I may not agree with the president on every program that he has to cut, but he's got to cut something because we didn't fund the government. And that's why I don't understand why the Democrats think this makes any sense, because they're giving the president exactly what he wants, in the sense that he can pick programs and shut down what he needs to shut down. And I saw this when Obama was in. He came in and shut down the Blue Ridge Parkway and then put officers out there to try to keep people from going to the concessionaires on the parkway. So this is what presidents do when there's a shutdown. It usually doesn't work out well for the legislative branch. I don't think it's going to work out for the legislative branch this time. I don't think that the chaos that is created by this shutdown is good for America. But I do think that we might be able to shrink some programs that I'm okay with shrinking. The others I may not be. We'll have to see.
We will have to see. And I know many are hoping for even a last minute solution. So Representative Morgan Griffith, thank you so much for your time and for weighing in.
Thank you.